Hello everybody, this is Gus from Relay Corp. Today we are going to be talking about Relaynet couriers and how they will help restore connectivity in an internet blackout. Now, before we dive into the job of a courier, let's first consider how Relaynet will work when the internet is available. For the sake of this example, let's say that Twitter supports Relaynet and that a user has got Twitter and the Relaynet app installed on their phones. There could be as many Relaynet compatible apps on their phones as there are, but for now, let's just assume that there is only one. So the way it would work is that typically with regular internet apps, the Android app will talk directly to the server of that service, in this case, twitter.com. But that's not the case with Relaynet, because this is precisely what we want to avoid doing, that direct communication, so that it can be delegated to Relaynet. And Relaynet will take care of using the best network, the best route to deliver that data. Typically, that best network will be the internet, but not all. But the whole point of Relaynet is that we don't assume that the internet is always available. So what will happen is the Twitter app will send and receive data via the Relaynet app on their phone, which in turn will be connected to a Relaynet server on the internet. And that is essentially what will be going on when the internet is available. When the internet is not available, however, what will happen is obviously the Twitter app can continue to talk to the Relaynet app on their user's phone, but they will only be able to send data because there is no way to get data when the internet is disconnected just yet. And similarly, the Twitter server can send data to this Relaynet server, but they will not be able to get data because these two are disconnected. And this is where a courier will come into play to establish that bridge that broke when the internet was cut off. So essentially, the job of a courier is to relay data between an area disconnected from the internet and one connected to it. If you think of real-world couriers, the individuals have a route, and they have a series of stops to do as part of that route. That's precisely where the analogy comes from in Relaynet. So a Relaynet courier will have a series of stops. Most of them will typically be disconnected from the internet, but at least one stop has to be connected to the internet. So what will happen is, at each stop where there is no access to the internet, their courier will arrive and they will turn on Wi-Fi hotspot on their phone. And keep in mind that the user is not connected to the internet. The sole purpose of enabling Wi-Fi hotspot in the user's device is so that users around the courier can connect to the courier's device to send and receive data that the courier will eventually deliver to the internet and collect from the internet to deliver to those users. But there is no live connection to the internet at that point. So the courier will will do the route, stopping at the different places that he was scheduled to stop, and they will synchronize data with as many users as they want to. And eventually, they will get to a location with access to the internet, and at that point, they will be sending data to the internet and collecting data on the user's behalf. And just to be clear, the only data that they will be sending and receiving will be for those users that the courier had in the route, not just any user. Now, if we look at what will happen in that synchronization with users at a location disconnected from the internet, so going back to that picture that we saw earlier, the user's phone has got the Relaynet app, and that app, let's say that the user tried to post a tweet, but of course the internet was not available. So what the Relaynet app did is that it held the data until either the internet was restored or a courier arrived to collect that data. So in this case, the courier arrived, and again, the courier turned on Wi-Fi hotspot on their device, and the Relaynet app on the user's phone connected to that device and sent that data that should be going to the internet. And just to be clear, the courier is not able to see that the user is using Twitter. They can't even see anything identifiable about the user or which service they are using or what data they are transferring or even change any of this. It's all totally opaque to the courier. The only thing they could see, if they had the technical means to do so, is to see the location of this server that they are going to eventually send the data to. But typically this server will be shared by many users, so there will be no way to identify an individual user based on this information. So this is basically what the courier will be doing at each stop. They will be getting data from users and delivering any data coming from the internet that should be going to that user. And they will repeat this process with each stop that doesn't have access to the internet. Then they will eventually arrive at a location with access to the internet. And in this case, the process will be quite simple. Once they connect to the internet, they will press a button and the data that they collected will be sent to the internet. The app will wait for a few seconds, just so that just to allow for enough time for that data to reach all the different services. And they will then, the app will then collect new incoming data that should be going to those users in the route. And this process can be repeated as many times as necessary throughout the duration of the internet blackout. The Relaynet courier will have to install an app, and this is the only thing they need. They don't need a new phone. They don't need any new hardware. They just need to install an app, and that app is what they will use at each stop. They don't need to use this app throughout the route. They only need to use the app at each stop. And the app is going to guide them in terms of what they can do at that stop. So if the courier is at a location with access to the internet, then the app will tell them you are able to synchronize with the internet. But if the courier is in a location with no access to the internet, then the app will tell them you can only synchronize with Relaynet users around you. Now, let's see what the Android implementation of this app will look like. But just to give you the heads up, the copy in this app is not yet finalized, and we still need to tweak a few details in the layout of the app. So please bear that in mind. So the first thing we are going to do is to disconnect the phone from the internet. So right now you'll find that I'm not connected to the internet, so no Wi-Fi and no 4G. And here is the app launcher icon, the courier app. So I will open that. And the first thing that we'll see is that, again, because there is no access to the internet, the only option is to synchronize with Relaynet users around me. So I'll go ahead with that. Now, because Wi-Fi hotspot was not enabled when I try to start the sync, the app will tell me that I need to enable it. So I will tap on that button to open the hotspot settings, and I will enable Wi-Fi hotspot. I will also have the option of opening that setting to share a QR code with users around me so that they can very quickly scan it and connect to my device. In the future, we want to embed this in the app so that the courier won't have to leave the app to do this. But for now, it will have to, if the courier wants to share a QR code, it will have to be done through Android itself. So once I'm done sharing that data, I will go back to the app and start the synchronization with users. So at this point, I'm just waiting for users to open the Relaynet app on their phones or laptop, and to press sync with courier. So now there is a user connected to my phone, and there could be as many users as my device allows. Typically on Android, that means a maximum of 15 devices. So I'm done with that location, so I'm going to now demo what will happen when I eventually get to a region connected to the internet. Now, the next stop may still be a location without access to the internet, in which case the process will be exactly the same that we just saw. But now let's pretend that we arrived at a location with access to the internet. So now the new option becomes enabled, and the app is now delivering that data that it collected in the route. Now it will wait a few seconds, and then now it's collecting any new data that should be going to those users that were in the route before. When that's done, then the user can go away, and they can, for example, they could go back to the first stop to start delivering that data that they collect from the internet, and similarly collect any new data that the users may have since the last synchronization. So at this point, that's already finished, and so at this point there is not much really to do in the app. So one thing that you may want to know is that you get to control how much data the Courier app can take up on your device. So you are in control of that. You can specify how much data you want to allocate to this. And if you are running low on disk space and you wish to delete all data, you also have the option to do so. And that's basically all there is to this. As you can see, hopefully it's simple enough. And yeah, that's basically it. If you want to learn more, please visit relaynet.network. Thank you so much for watching this.